about, because it was kind of a bit of a conflux of the AI art controversy from last week, and then the Wayfarer's Bauble controversy that just kind of hit back to back. And it was like, let's talk about controversies in art and magic this time.
Well, the interesting and sad thing too is it's not just magic when it comes to this problem.
Yeah.
And like that's the whole reason why the writers were on strike.
Oh, yeah.
That and there's a lot of other things too.
And actors too.
Granted.
Yeah.
Yes, mostly pay people what they're worth. Um,
Yeah.
the whole idea that like they're trying to like take AI and do a lot of these tasks and replace things, and it's bad when things get to that level of publication and no one's double checked.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't familiar, there was it was taken down pretty quick, but you can find screenshots of it online. There was a advertisement they put out for the Lara Croft secret layer, or the Tomb Raider secret layer.
Uh-huh.
And it was very like nostalgia feeling, like TV on like a TV stand, wooden panel wall in the background with posters, and it's supposed to remind you of your childhood playing Tomb Raider. Well, very quickly,
Yeah.
people noticed that the picture just felt off.
Yeah.
Right?
And it does too. Like it's one of those things. Like I talked about it in my episode on Friday, and I wasn't kidding when I said that was ripped from my childhood. Like literally, the front room in my house growing up had wood paneling. That was where the video games were set up. There was a TV, looked a lot like that on a low stand like that. But it was like, I first saw it and I was like, oh, that's cool. That reminds me of my childhood, but weird. There's something weird.
Well, I mean, you could almost smell the ashtray, right?
Oh, yeah. The fact that I grew up with two parents who smoked.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I was going to say, what's that art? The interesting, funny thing about AI art to me is that unease you feel because the things being unnaturally off, or just slightly off.
Yeah.
And it's comparable to how your brain works when you're dreaming.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because like your brain will fill the gap, your brain will do all these little things, and if you ever have like lucid dreams or you can remember your dreams, like sometimes things are just weird. Like that coffee table in that artwork has different legs.
Yeah, I think that's what's off about it. Is it looks like a well painted, situation, but there are mistakes that are novice mistakes, like the fact that the legs are off, but only off in their shape. They're not off in their sizing. They're not off in their proportion, but they're off in their shape, which just makes it feel a little like off-putting, because you're like, wait, this is a well done piece, but the errors are not errors a human would make. And I think that's what's glaring to us.
The other glaring issue with it, though, is the errors the human did make, and that is the very poorly photoshopped pictures they put over the TV and on walls.
Yeah.
Where the like saturation hue, like the lighting is just wrong.
Yeah.
Like they feel super out of place. Like it doesn't feel like an authentic poster on a wall. It just feels like, wow, they really just slapped that on there because it's a consistent light, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to add depth and shadows to other things, which people notice shadows are going the wrong ways, like it feels misplaced, right?
Yeah. And what's funny, and I'm very curious about this. We've been harping on this. We haven't really gotten into the controversy, but essentially they put up those posters, they put out that tweet, and people were like, hey, that's AI art, that's not cool. And so they took it down, they put up another one. If you said this before and I missed it because I was too busy looking at the piece of art and getting weirded out, I apologize. But they immediately put up another one. And my thought was, the other day when I was putting it up in the show, when I was doing graphics for my show, I thought to myself, I bet you I wouldn't be shocked at all if the background of the new one is AI art too, but because it's much more subdued and in the background, and they just kind of threw a filter over it to make it look just like it's random woods, so you can't see as many details. I bet you that's AI art as well, but it's just done in such a way that we just can't tell, and it's not as offensive to us. You know what I mean? Could be wrong.
I hope not, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they just, grab someone else's art and just photoshopped over it. Like, why would they ever do that?
Yeah. Well, they have I believe it's called, oh, what's it called? The slush it's called, I think it's called it's either called the slush fund or the slush file, but it's essentially a file of art that they have received. This is internal name. It's not the official name. It's what the designers use sometimes, and the creative marketing and stuff use the slush file, because it's essentially a folder filled with art that they have commissioned and they got back, but they didn't use for a
Right.
card for whatever reason. So it's entirely possible that they just popped in there, found a forest art somewhere that they could throw a filter on and threw it in the back. That's probably just as likely. But I thought, wouldn't it be funny if it was AI art?
Right. Well, and I guess that's interesting because, like, especially when it comes to basic lands, I really hope they have just a stockpile of basic land art.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do.
Like, of all the things to have,
Yeah.
the controversy, and like, I guess the question here is, Nate, what year is it? Because,
2023.
well, if we're having stolen art ripped and put on cards, I'd swear it was 2021, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, that
like,
was, yeah, because you're talking about the other controversy, which was David Sondered. Is that how you say his name?
this isn't the first instance we've had where someone's gotten called out for, cheating, for plagiarizing, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until after the fact they're like, oh yep, sorry. What gives? You're doing this at a professional level,
Uh-huh.
and you're literally just tarnishing your entire career
Oh yeah.
by saying, oh hey, well, I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to phone it in today. In this
Yeah.
case of both of these cards that we're talking about, the Wayfarer's Bauble from the Precon and then Crux of Fate from the Strixhaven Mystical Archives,
Yeah.
they literally took someone else's artwork and just put it in. In the one case for the Strixhaven card here, they took Nicol Bolas fan art that was made in 2016, cropped him out, got rid of the little thing between his horns, and then put him in it sideways so he's fighting Ugin. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
very clear it was stolen. The guy admitted it. They still haven't corrected the artist name on the card, but it's just not okay,
Yeah.
right? And then in the case of this Wayfarer's Bauble, they all they did was invert the picture and then
Uh-huh.
put their stuff over it.
Yeah.
Like, it it's they didn't even try to get away with it.
Yeah. Because I can find Kit LaPena, um, which is that was the artist that had their bolus stolen. And now the good news is that Kit LaPena has now since, like, before this, they were a aspiring artist. They were like a very good one, but they were aspiring to be a magic artist. And through this controversy, they actually now have art on cards now because of this. So that's a happy ending for that. I'm trying to find the name of the guy that the guy that did the Crux of Fate.
They did the All Is Dust artwork. You want to
Yes,
look that
oh
up?
yes. It is, and I remember being so mad because I love that art of All His
Right.
Dust.
They've done over 100 artworks, and it's
Jason
like,
Felix. Jason
yeah,
Felix. Damn him. I'm just mad because I really liked his art, and now he will never do a magic card ever again because he, and his excuse, if I remember correctly, he basically said that he was running behind. He, wanted to get something, out there quickly, and decided to just pull that bolus, and, you know, and it was a bad excuse. Like, it was a really bad excuse. Now,
oh,
David Sondered, they came out with an excuse, and their excuse was basically that I don't want to say is better, because if you look at the art, it doesn't say what he said, but he basically said that he uses other art as inspiration all the time and will often put it on the canvas to then manipulate it and change it and make it his own, which is actually kind of common in art. Like, artists will take inspiration from other artists all the time. But if you look at the original and look at the Wayfarer's Bauble, there is no question he did hardly anything. Like, everything he did was basically to try to cover up that it was like, okay, let's put a bush where the lady is, flip it around, anyway.
well, it's a little funny because, like, in the same situation. I'm staring at your playmat, and that was a card art that they just superimposed things on top of it.
Yeah, yeah,
But if they already own the rights to it, I mean,
exactly.
it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
just, there's no scene where that's happening, right?
Well, and I will compare this to rampant growth. Okay. Now, I didn't know this until I saw what's his name, Ristic Studies video about. I don't know if it was about rampant growth specifically, but he discussed in the video about how rampant growth, the art of rampant growth, is heavily inspired by Hokusai's The Great Wave. And I never knew that. I had seen that card a ton of times, but if you look at it, you can see that it's essentially the Great Wave, but instead of water, it's land. And the thing is that this is, I think, an example of somebody taking inspiration from other art, making their own art with that, and using the excuse of, I use other art as inspiration and this time I just didn't do a good enough job, doesn't hold water. Because with the Rampant Growth Great Wave, they made their own piece of art using the Great Wave as inspiration.
Right.
Here, the person hardly made any changes. And I'm sorry, like I cannot for the life of me think that, like, oh, I'm gonna get away with this, or like I just can't process an artist making a decision like that, looking at that painting and looking at their process and seeing, oh look, here's this painting by, and let's give credit to the painting, to the person. It's Lorenzo Lanfranconi, who has also done magic art as well. They've done their own art for magic, which is great. But yeah, and it's Wizards has already come out and said that they will no longer work with David Sonderred. And it's just like, wow, how can you just throw your career away like that? It just blows me away.
Yeah, because in the rampant growth case, it's the frame of your perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what they took, the idea of a wave, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is like, oh hey, we're just gonna swap this down, do a little bit of editing here and there. Same thing as the Nicol Bolas and Crux of Fate.
Exactly.
And we're gonna leave it. So a similar issue and stuff that's happened, like, so not in the magic scene, but like there's been issues where artists rip off artists, right? Not just in artwork, but in music, right? And there's problems where you can't copyright a chord or chord progression, right? But there's an issue. How many years ago was this? 2019. A band that most people don't know, named Flaw, literally plagiarized music that Douglas Patrick had posted to YouTube as just like new metal riffs he made. Like literally just uplifted them and played them themselves. No changes.
Oh, jeez.
And it's like you get to the point where you're like, I'm just gonna just go steal something else someone else made and just do it myself, and good luck suing me, right?
Oh, jeez.
But it's I'm only bringing this up because it's a problem with other arts as well and other art forms. While yes, what's the saying? You're being like them is the greatest like compliment.
Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, I think.
Yeah,
Something
that
like
one. That saying.
Yeah.
The imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but that's imitation, right? That's not copying. That's not being them, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to go out there and go play Jimi Hendrix and act like you wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this goes like, also some people like to throw out there that there's this famous quote that I don't know if Picasso actually said it. I'm sure maybe he did. I'm not sure, but there was a famous quote that is attributed to him that says that he said, "Good artists imitate, great artists steal." Like it's.
I feel like someone made that up.
Yeah, I don't like it. It is entirely possible that Pablo Picasso said that, because he was up his own ass and a lot, and so it is entirely possible that he may have said it. But there's a thing though. Like, I remember learning. I took a Renaissance art course that covered not only the art but also the artists themselves and the history, and we covered a lot of the greats. Obviously, the Turtles, we got them. But one
For
of the
those who don't
things,
know what he means, is the artist that the Ninja Turtles are named
yeah,
after.
Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. But one of the things that I found fascinating was the method on which they learned their craft. And the way they learned their craft and the way they learned their art was by copying.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is they would watch other painters, and they would look at other paintings and other sculptures and other things and imitate. And they would do that over and over and over and over again. And then, and as part of it, they would go out and do, like, still lifes, or just go out into a courtyard and just paint a fountain or whatever. They would do that too. But they imitated their forebears until they got so good that they could just do it from memory. They could do it. They didn't need to. And I found that interesting, because in a weird way, they were, quote unquote, stealing the art, but not really. They were imitating it. They were making copies of it so they could learn the techniques. And now, not all of them did it exactly like that, but that was a very popular style of learning how to be an artist then. And I remember when I was learning how to be an artist, that's what I was doing. But because, and this is part of the reason why I stopped doing art, was there was a feeling, and I would get this whenever I would show people art, and they would see it and they'd be like, oh, well, that's, you just copied that other thing. And I would say, yeah, isn't it a good copy? And they would go, well, yeah, it's a nice copy, but like, come up with your own stuff. And that kind of discouraged me, because I was like, oh, apparently I'm not being an artist. And then to find out that the greats, that's how they learned. And I was like, ah, crap. Now, I wouldn't have become a great artist. I'm not implying that at all. But I just found that interesting. And I think this artist, I don't know if I'm not in his head, but it almost seems to me like he was trying to say that. He was trying to say, oh, well, I was just doing a thing that I always do, and I just didn't do it enough, and it's just like,
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, it's the same thing. If you ever learn how to play music, you learn how to play music someone else has already written,
yeah.
right? Because you have to learn the fundamentals and get that feeling, get comfortable. And it's the same thing with art.
Yeah.
And I can relate to music more than art, because I am terrible at drawing and painting and all that. My first grade daughter is way better at art than me already, and she's not even great. She's just okay. So,
but I do think the parallels are there. I do, because I think they're just different styles of art.
they are, and that's the thing, is like, it gets to the point though where you'll hear the same melody in different songs. You'll hear the same rhythm, or they'll use the same kind of harmony and all these other things, and it happens. Like,
yeah,
there's less creative freedom when you're talking about the same couple notes and what order you can play them in.
Yeah.
When it comes to artwork, and this is the part where it gets me too, is that it's okay if it's for personal use. If you're going and you're painting and you're learning and you're doing things, and you're not trying to like advertise and sell this big thing out there. You're not making card artwork that's going to get printed.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid for it. And it's the same thing with like all the people go out there and they cover songs, right? But they give credit to the original artist.
Oh yeah. Well, I think to really bleed this metaphor dry, I think because there was that recent case that went to the Supreme Court about, it was Ed Sheeran versus what's his name, Marvin Gaye. It was Ed Sheeran versus the family of Marvin Gaye, and they were claiming that he stole a chord progression from Marvin Gaye's music. And I remember being fascinated by this because a lot of the music YouTubers I follow were basically saying that this is insanity. Like what they're trying to say is a copyrighted thing is akin to saying the oil painting is a copyrightable form of art, that somebody could say, no, only I can make oil paintings because I do oil paintings and I copyrighted that way to do it. Like, because they were saying that the chord progression is such a basic fundamental block of music that there are thousands of songs that use that chord progression. And if you would copyright it, it would completely and they were afraid because, with the Supreme Court, we don't know what the hell they're going to do. If they sided with Marvin Gaye, it would have completely changed the music industry. I just found that fascinating. And so that's what I kind of think it is. I think with, you can learn the different styles, you can learn the basics, you can learn the foundations, but you are supposed to make your own thing with them. And
so we equate this to your decks, because you go out there, and I've done it. I have decks where it's not my build, right? People's deck list. I play them. I don't advertise that I built this deck, but I'll make changes to it. I'll update it, and at a certain point, it becomes kind of an inspired deck, right? Versus you might have something you just build it straight from scratch, right? But who's to say the thing you built from scratch isn't something someone else built from scratch and you just didn't know about it? That's a little different, but that's like where the music part gets where it's a sound, it's a progression, it's a way of doing it. Like you said, like oil paintings, right? Or sculpting marble. Like you can't say that's my thing.
Yeah.
But when it's artwork you've published, and they take it and they're saying it's theirs, that's a problem. Don't steal, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting because I remember, and I'm reading an article. I just pulled up an article right now because I remember there being something where somebody tried to copyright their deck. And
I remember that.
Yeah, it was apparently Dr. Robert Hovden, who's known as a legal provocateur. Yeah, so apparently he did that, and I guess I don't know if it really went anywhere. I think it's probably because apparently he was successfully able to copyright it, but he's never. I don't think it's ever been officially challenged within the courts. But I do remember there being some. I think somebody tried to do so a long time ago, and it didn't hold up. And that's what I was trying to look for. But yeah, it's. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that.
Could you imagine that if you could copyright your deck list?
Oh Jesus!
Well, just a deck list, and then that being one of the top tier meta deck lists, and you show up to a tournament and no one can play your deck.
Ugh. God, I can't even imagine.
Because the people running to go get that copyright. And then like being able to sue people because like your deck is 90% the same as mine. You owe me that much.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised, and again, neither of us are lawyers, especially neither of us are copyright lawyers. Let's even be more specific. But I would imagine part of the reason why that hasn't become a thing is because there really isn't anything lucrative about it. Like there's one thing, if you make a deck and you copyright it, the only people you potentially ever could get money out of is any pro player who's good enough to win prize money with it. You know what I mean? Where like with a song or a painting or a TV show or a movie or whatever, people could potentially turn, or a story, a script, people could turn that into a very lucrative thing. So that's why it's more common there. So I wonder if the reason why it isn't such a thing here in copywriting Magic decks is just because there's just no money in going after people who violate your copyright.
So, question for the listeners though, what deck would you copyright if you could?
Oh, that's a good question. What would you copyright?
Bert.
Bert.
I want to always bring that deck up.
what's absolutely hilarious to me is my father-in-law's name is Bert. So
is it?
So it's every time you say it, I just think of him. And that about does it for today's discussion on Beyond the Deck Box, where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering. You can find us each week on the YouTube channel FDS MTG, or you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. Just look for Beyond the Deck Box. You can find DM Dingo on Twitch, or you can find him on the FDS MTG Discord
Discord, link in the description. You can find me, FDSMTG, on YouTube, or at FDS_MTG on Threads, or on Mastodon, kind.social. Thank you so much for tuning in, and you all have a wonderful day.